And hey everyone, welcome to the live stream. This is Pete Bickford. I'm the author of ComicBase, and welcome to our studios out here out in beautiful Franklin, Tennessee, just outside of Nashville. Hope you're all doing well. I just want to do a quick check of the chat, make sure everyone can hear me. Things are going well. Yeah, I did that for technical reasons here, just to make sure, because I had streams, as you all know, where I've spent the first 8 minutes talking to myself with no sound, and it's really good when people actually respond and say, hi. So I notice that I know everyone can hear me. So that's a wonderful thing. All right, I just want to also make sure we get the keying up so I can call things out in the chat for the program. Now let's see here. Rob says, beautiful day in Toledo. Yep, and great, our keying is working. Sweet. All right, and Company Man has a question about magazines with Warren. We'll hit that one in a bit, and we'll take it from there. All right, so a couple of bits of news I want to hit top of the thing, and then we'll get on to other things. First of all, happy Veterans Day to everyone. 11/11 of 1918, I believe, at 11 o'clock or something was it was some crazy time, but it was the end of World War I. And that's when the guns fell silent. It was Armistice Day, and that became Veterans Day. And to anyone who served in the armed forces, thank you so much for everything you guys did. By the way, if you guys don't know this yet, I'm afraid this only applies to active duty folks, but for the last, God help us, 19 years, we've had a program for ComicBase called Caps for Comic Software, where basically what it comes down to is if you are active duty military, whether it's Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, or, and yes, because it's come up, any of our allied forces serving overseas. So yes, we've given these to like British paratroopers as well. But if you're active duty, you can send us either a challenge coin or a cap from the PX, or just frankly just something that says kind of hi from us to from you to us, and for us to you, we'll give you anything we make that's software for 75% off the list price. Basically, we're selling to you at cost, because it's what it comes down to is the story started is after 9/11. None of us knew what to do with with everything. Everything's the country's mobilizing in a really weird way. We're trying to deal with the tragedy that befallen us, and a lot of people we knew in the armed services were shipping out and going to different places. And I got a call from one guy who was getting on the sub, and he said, hey, I need to get an upgrade for because I'm shipping out in a couple weeks. And I want to make sure that my wife can handle it while I'm gone. And I was like, yeah, dude, there's no way your money's any good with us right now. This one's on us. And then the other calls came in, things like that, and it was same answer. It was like, there's no way in hell I'm charging someone who's shipping off. We obviously couldn't keep that going forever, but what we did do is we said, all right, look, tell you what, just as a matter of just mutual respect, just a way of saying hi, basically. Send us a cap or a challenge coin, just from your unit, or whatever. We've had people send us McDonald's French fry wrappers from Iraq, and just something to say hey. On the other hand, we've also had people send us who were on like the Abraham Lincoln Sense ginormous Lincoln pennies. It practically looks the sort of thing that would have been the Bat Cave, along with pictures of the boat and things like that. We've gotten lots of cool stuff over the years from people, and what we do is basically just take 75% off the list price for anything we do, and add in domestic shipping, and we'll hook you up. We can't do the same thing on barcode scanners because we don't have the same kind of margins on that. But basically, if you are active, let us know and we'll hook you up. Because you guys are saving the free world. It's the least we can frickin' do. Now, on other news of the universe. So in other very important things that happened this week, let me switch to the graphics over here. Actually, is there a better way to do the switching? Nah, probably not. All right. Sorry. I as you guys may know, I have what's called an A10 mini switcher here that I have to do all my own production as the show is live. I don't have a producer in the room here, so I'm relying on a thing called a Stream Deck. It's a thing with just a million buttons on it, where I kind of punch it and it executes different macros to queue up graphics and get different things switched and everything. They have the version I got, because I got this when I was just getting into streaming, is the regular Stream Deck. In retrospect, I wish I'd gotten the one with even more buttons, so you could have even more things at your fingertips. Because as is right now, there's so many things to control. Different camera angles, and if you have 20 different graphics queued up for the show, you got to have things to hit each one of those. That if you what I have right now, you have to switch pages of the control surface in order to get to the right one. So that kind of takes me out of the mode here for a moment. But let me go ahead and queue up this one here, and hopefully you guys are all seeing this graphic. There we are. That is our very own Mark Castaneda. You guys have all spoken to him on the phone probably if you've ever called for tech support, or everything from where's my copy of ComicBase, how do I work this thing, to hey, I have a question about the S variant of deceased number 3. He's been the guy who's helped you out, and he just got married to the lovely Jane. They're on their honeymoon right now. We wish them all the well. We're incredibly happy for them both. Mark's been with us forever, and he does amazing things around here. I know this because I'm filling in for him this week, and it's driving me nuts. Anyway, congrats to both Mark and Jane, and just well done to both. All right, so anyway, that's the biggest news of the whole day. Everything else I'm going to tell you is going to be fiddling by comparison. Anyway, number one is because Mark is gone this week, the update is going to be weird. Now, by weird, what I mean is, in our production process, as many of you guys know, I'm out here by Nashville. The rest of the team is out in San Jose, California. And the comics are all shipped out to San Jose, California, and they wind up right on Mark's desk. If Mark is not at Mark's desk, the comics don't get scanned the same week. And so we're not actually in a position to put the update out this week. Sort of. Except that, while Mark's been gone, I've been filling in for Mark. So I've been doing all the corrections and everything else that's going on. And frankly, unlike some people who work for me, I've kept on top of the dang corrections. Now, it's involved me working till midnight most nights. But anyway, so any of your cover submissions, any of your corrections, all those have been into the database this week. There have been thousands. Thank you so much to everyone who's done all this stuff. If you've gotten emails from me arguing about whether the S variant should be the Diodato cover or the whatever else, please try to take it in stride. I'm doing the best I can, filling in for some very big shoes here. But anyway, that's all those are going to be coming out, and I will be pushing that update on Thursday. However, new content for the week that we would have had to rely on the book showing up to see is not necessarily going to be in there this week. It's going to have to catch up when Mark gets back in and fills in when we actually hit our own shipments. So if people send us submissions for those covers that'll be there anyway, then it'll be in there. If not, you're going to have to give us a week off on this one. We'll catch up with you eventually. In the meantime, there are stupid numbers of new comics coming in anyway, so they could and should keep you entertained in the meantime. So just be ready for that one. It's going to be a big update, but it will not necessarily have the very latest issue of whatever, say, DC shipped this week. All right, that's that one. Let's see here. Let me do a quick check of the chat. Andrew says, hi, all here. Okay, everything's hearing well. Excellent. A Confident Man says, Mike, I have to try to remake the thumbnails. I'm not sure what that's about. Xander says, hello from the wet walled Seattle. All right, let's see here. Okay, John's calling in from Canada. All right, and Mark is marrying up. Yeah, no doubt. All right, cool. All right, other news. Along with filling in on content and such, one of the things that's coming down this time out is, and it's kind of weird because you guys won't necessarily see it because it's going to be an absence of data as opposed to data, but we're doing a huge purge of ISBN numbers from our database. One thing I'm noticing is I'm having to run all the corrections and do all the editing this week, is that we're getting a lot of people, depending on where they scanned in the barcode or whatever else, we're not entirely certain where the origin of this is coming from, but there's a lot of random foo that some people are sending in for ISBN numbers for comic books that, as far as I can tell, is just not valid. It's, they're numbers, and if we see them and they're the right number of digits, we'll format them as if they were an ISBN. But comics in general, unless they are graphic novels or trade paperbacks or something like that, typically won't have an ISBN. They might have something called an ISSN, but even that's kind of unlikely in most cases. So what we did this time out is we've actually done a huge house cleaning of what looks to be junk ISBN numbers from the master databases from the databases that we push out from Atomic Avenue and so forth. So this doesn't affect barcodes, it doesn't affect alternate UPCs or anything like that, but in particular just ISBN numbers. We did a big house cleaning on those. So when the updates come out this week, now the general rule on updates is if you already have information and we're pushing non-information at you, so in other words, you had an ISBN and we didn't have one, your ISBN that you've got, we're going to leave alone. Now, if we had a different ISBN than yours and you elect to make changes when you download an update, then you'd get our new ISBN. But in this particular case, what will happen is there will be a lot of comic books that you may or may not have in your database that we will say, yeah, I don't think that's a real ISBN, and we'll just basically have a blank in the update for where that is. Now, reality-wise, it won't affect you at all because it's going to leave your database entirely alone. That said, you may wish to clean your database the same way we did of any of the spurious info. Now, again, it doesn't have a great impact one way or another. It doesn't really help you because it's just, if we're right and these are BS numbers, then all it means is that a number you never would have typed anyway is still no good for helping you search and find a comic. But as far as we can tell, what's really happened is people have like scanned barcodes into the wrong field, and so they're trying to interpret something that's really a barcode as an ISBN number, and it's truncating it at the wrong place, and various other foo like that. But either way, it's not particularly useful to have in your database. If you would like to clean your database in the same way that we've cleaned ours, what I would suggest doing is you can do a mass change in ComicBase and set your ISBN numbers to nothing for comics, and then when you download this week's update, you'll still get all the ones that we think are valid, and those will come back in. Or you could just do nothing and leave them be, because they're not really hurting anything. You know, they're probably taking a couple extra bytes in your database. It just bugged me, because what would happen is every single time someone sends a correction in, so let's say you'd updated a cover date in, for a given issue, and we didn't have that cover date, we have a little control console that shows all the different things about the comic book as we had it in the database and the comic book as you had it in the database, and it highlights in red the things that are different, and it makes the editor, which in this case is me, make a decision about a lot of things that I hate making decisions about if I don't have to. And so if your ISBN's bogus and I don't like it, that's getting automatically scrubbed, and it's just one less thing for me to have to worry about on my end. But again, if you are kind of like a little bit compulsive in that direction, you might want to scrub yours too. And that should take care of this if you want to. So if you feel like it, do a mass change, set the ISBN of your comics to nothing when you downloaded this week's update. Again, all the valid ISBN should come back down again, but you'll have gotten rid of a few bogus ones that seem unrelated. If it matters to you, it's worth doing. Okay, let's see here. The ISBN held other junk like creators and other text. Yeah, it may have. It wasn't meant to. As far as I can tell, what's the stuff I'm seeing in the ISBN field that's junk data is primarily just, I mean, it's a number that just doesn't correspond to anything we could find. And I've reached out to several people because our master database in many cases didn't have this data. And so I'm asking people, well, hey, you submitted an ISBN that we don't know, and it appears to be BS. Can you tell us where you got it from? And I've asked several folks, and I haven't gotten an answer yet from anyone who really even knows where they got it from. Some people thought maybe they just had scanned into the wrong field or whatever else, and maybe so, or copied and pasted from something that they shouldn't have. Either way, we're trying to clean it up. That's what the effort is on that. All right. Okay, isn't the ISBN also for the UPC barcodes? The ISBN is actually meant for the ISBN number in particular. It was International Standard Book Number, something like that. Anyways, so what that is it should be a number that's separate from the barcode. Now, there are some barcodes that start with 978 in particular, which are called Bookland style barcodes, where after the 978 is a number of digits, including the ISBN, and then usually a cover price is the last 4 digits of those style barcodes. If you do scan a barcode that's in Bookland style, it'll automatically populate the ISBN from the barcode because we could tell that was part of it. But we don't normally see ISBNs unless the thing you're scanning is some kind of trade paperback. or something that's not a regular comic book. So the cleanup in particular focuses on things that don't have a ISBN that seems to be factored from the barcode, and which are not regular comic issues. So those are the ones that are getting flushed out. We shouldn't be touching anything that was a trade paperback, graphic novel, book, etc. It's just the regular comic issues that seem like the data is just, foolishness. So, anyway, that's that. If you do some finds on ISBN, you can find a few creator names. There's some other stray text junk. I will have a look, and if so, we will try to flush those out as well. Yeah, it's a constant battle. We have, good Lord, I want to say about a decade ago, I looked and because I wanted to, tell people, it's like, well, when you say you have the biggest database of comic books going, what are you basing that on? And we had tried to, at that point, determine how many millions of discrete pieces of information were in the database, and it was tens of millions. It was just crazy how much stuff we're tracking about, different, UPCs and character appearances and artists and writers and so forth, pricing histories, etc. It's stupid how much data is in this database, and it's always like a compulsive person's dream to have it all be 100% perfect. And it's always one of those things that's just, if you ever wanted a Sisyphean task in your life, just the rock that will never be rolled all the way to the top of the hill and dang it, stay there, try running a comic database, because the data set's so huge you could just never fill it out, and you'll always want to. And so we're always in a process of trying to be a little bit better than we were last time in terms of, filling in that, that Vince Colletta inker that got left off of the, the issue of Thor that, that we have had in the database for 10 years, but we had somehow omitted, or for that matter, flushing out bogus data, that someone had scanned in an ISBN field once upon a time. But with, we're coming up on 900,000 comic issues in the database, and at this point we have to start saying comic issues because we're getting to have at this point tens of thousands of things that aren't comics as well. With the vast amount of data we carry on each of these things, it's just one of those things where, like, when we see an area where there's a lot of like cleanup that needs to be done, we tend to like kind of form a task force to kind of go after it, but we're never going to get it all the way. But it doesn't mean we don't try. Let's see. Because yes, this sort of thing should never have been approved by database editors. I agree. And what happens really is we do have editors, and they go fast. Is the only thing I could say. Is typically we'll catch a lot of stuff, but I have a lot of sympathy for the idea if you're 98% perfect, that still means that 2 out of every 100 things that went past you, something got through that was not quite right. So when these things pile up, you try to take some tools and scrub over them and get rid of them. And there's a lot of automated stuff in the database as well that tries to flush that stuff out. But yeah, we're always going to be in a process where we're trying to get the cruft out. So when you guys see anything where like, yeah, I'm seeing some junk in this field, that field, whatever else, if there's any pattern to any of it, let us know, because we love, like I say, getting this thing as clean as it can be while knowing that we'll never entirely win. Alright, so let's see here. Grace says, if you haven't done so, you might want to post quick minutes on the company boards, read this week's update. Great idea, absolutely. Alright, so I think that is it for that part of the chat. Other things, alright, so I have a little, I don't know if you guys know this, I've little notes I make for myself ahead of the show of things I want to make sure we talk about, and questions people have asked that I want to answer and so forth. By the way, if you have other questions that you would like answered during this whole thing, please post them in the chat. I will hit as many of them as I can. I already have a couple pending, but I will hit as many other ones as I do. This is not a big theme show, so I'm relying on you guys posting questions. Other than that, it's going to be a little shorter than the average show, which I'm not saying that's bad either, because it's been a big week. Anyway, things I have learned doing corrections. Number one, variants. What's the deal on variants? All right, first thing, it's like the little micro rant. No, we're not changing your abbreviation. So what this comes up is let's say you have a series like like what was the one that came up? It was like die or something. Die. Yes, it was. it was called Die Die Die. Yeah, here we go. Let's flip over to the screen on this one. Have a look at this beauty. So here we have a lovely title, Die Die Die, where we have just issue number 1 has 1A through H. I'm sorry, 1A through J variants. You know, and then all the others have multiple variants, etc. What'll happen is some of them will come in there periodically, because, you know, not all of these variants will be something that we will have gotten information on ahead of time. They will be something that, you know, some of these ones will have been solicited through Diamond. Some of them will be special things that you only get if you went and ordered straight from the shop or from the creators, or you attended a convention, or were published after the fact, whatever the thing is. So we'll go and we'll do as many different things we have, and a lot of these things are very, very subtle as to what is different about them. For instance, this one over here, the gold foil edition, you can tell because it looks exactly like all the others, except it's, you know, has goldish lettering, which really, when you scan it, looks kind of black on the screenshot. Anyway, one thing we cannot do ever is if we've assigned that something is the H cover, which is the ugh, these guys bled all over the place. Now, in this case, what the deal is apparently the variants have to do with the caption of what this character is doing over here. So, for instance, the F one is, they said this would be an easy one. All right, if we said that F was the, they said this would be an easy one cover, right, as you'll see right there, please, for the love of all that is holy, don't submit a correction, because when you cataloged yours, you thought maybe it would be better as like the Q variant. If you submit that one, we're going to reject it. Or for that matter, if you say it should have been, you found some other reference later on, which, you know, it could even be from the company, where, you know, when they were going and soliciting their reprints of these things, unless we catch it like before it shipped, if the company goes out later on and puts out a thing saying, hey, go collect them all, here's all the variants of Die 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 number 1, and let's say they say that they said this would be an easy one is really the G cover, wherever they listed it the first time, right? Once we've put this out, and once the comic book has shipped, and once people have put inventory into their own collections, we can never reassign that darn thing. It's going to stay the F cover, even if the company says it's not. Because if we took our best shot at it and we said, that the F variant was a particular cover, and you put inventory onto it, and then you went to sell that on, say, Atomic Avenue or on eBay or whatever else, or let's say these things started having very big price differences between them. We can't, for us to change the F variant to become the new G variant or something like that, would absolutely scramble everyone's inventory who'd ever happened, who'd ever used the database. We're never going to do that if we can possibly avoid it. We might occasionally accidentally accept your correction when we shouldn't, if you do it sneakily on us and we don't notice right away. But man, we are trying really hard not to do that sort of thing. So if you see you've got a variant and it's already been assigned a number, for God's sake, stick with that number. Don't give us a different number. You're not helping anyone. By the way, one of the things that we put into effect, and let me see if I can get the graphic on that one up, to help me out with this one, and this is new, again, for having to cover for Mark, is when I'm just simply, for instance, dragging pictures in, and someone will submit a different variant. We have it rigged out now so that in the next, and you'll see this in the next version of ComicBase as well. You won't see it in the current ComicBase 2020, but when you drag and drop pictures in, it'll attempt to locate the issue information that exists in the database, and will actually give you the notes right in the middle there for what the differences are on the particular edition. So if someone gives you a cover that isn't the same as the cover you were expecting, what used to happen for our editors is they would back out of the whole process, do a lot of research, come back to it, and then try to make a call as to whether to accept your submission or not. Because it's when the cover looks different than we expect, that's a red flag that, whoa, stop everything. We got to make sure that we're not changing, the variant on someone. But anyway, the other thing we'll do right now is, to the extent that we have information like that, we'll actually say things, like this is the cardstock variant covered by Francesco Mattina, if I'm reading the tiny, tiny type on my own screen monitor here properly. So anyway, that's the sort of thing that we're trying to do going forward. And by the way, in case you wonder what that looks like, is we're dragging and dropping pictures for ourselves. That's what the replace dialog looks like. Yeah, you guys have that in your version. What you guys probably don't have is like the editing console. Well, I know you don't have it because it's only in the admin copies of ComicBase. So anyway, that's that. So we're trying. Please don't submit different variants. That was my long and impassioned plea. All right, moving back. All right. Cropping, and more cropping. So another thing that you've heard me talk about lately is that we are doing some things in the next version of ComicBase that are going to really show off the pictures in a kind of a cool way. And one of the things that's driving me crazy on a personal level is whenever the pictures aren't cropped right, it spoils the Zen experience that I'm having with this new thing, because I can't help but focus on the little tiny white edge, around the picture from when someone didn't crop it in properly, and that's all I see when I stare through whatever random selection of it was 685,000 covers we now have in the database. So a while ago, we commissioned one graphic image specialist to write a routine which automatically sorted through all the deeply nested folders, find things that are improperly cropped, show it to us, try to figure out what the proper cropping is, give it to our editors to okay or not okay them, and move on from there. Hired this guy, and he completely flamed out. After weeks of doing it, he had to admit, yeah, I can't solve this problem. It turns out I thought it was an easy problem. It turns out it's a hard problem. So no problem. Well, actually, we weren't quite that sanguine, but we just like, okay, moving on. Now we'll go to the next guy. And we hired a guy who's like, no, I've really researched this problem. I've done it, things like this before. I've got this one under control. Hired him. He worked at it, and in about a week in, he went, uh-oh. And we're like, what does uh-oh mean? And uh-oh means this is actually a harder problem than I thought. It's like, that sounds familiar. So anyway, after weeks more of working with him, we got a solution that's not the worst, but it ain't great. Not the worst means is it actually does do the job. In other words, it will allow us to pick a folder full of I don't know, 500,000 images, and go through and find the 1 out of every 5 or so that have some kind of cropping defect in them, suggest a crop for them, and let an operator go through them. The not all that great part is that someone needs to sit there and look at, in our case, it looks like it's going to be about 110,000 images. And let me show you what that looks like, just to show you what I've been doing in my copious spare time. Let's see if I've got that up on the other monitor here. Sure. So here we are, and just before going on the air here, I was working with the publisher called Bastei out of Germany, with a comic called Felix. Heute mit Saturn Verokata. Anyway, and what happens is the image on the left here is the original image. You'll see that there's the area where they didn't really trim off the top of the part here where the comic bag was, and so forth. Now over on the left, it found that edge, okay. It found the left edge pretty good of the comic up to about where the staples are. It didn't trim in quite as far as I would like to do over here. Unfortunately, on the right, it didn't hit the crop at all, and at the bottom, it didn't hit the crop at all. So then, what the operator has to do on our side of things is basically go nudge, 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 nudge. Great, got it. Crop onto the next one. Lather, rinse, and repeat. Oh, and by the way, on this case, this one over here is rotated a little bit. We built in some rotation controls to help fix those things up. Crop, and again, lather, rinse, and repeat. You say, hey, that's pretty fast. Man, I'll bet you might be able to do one in every 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds, maybe even, depending on how bad it is. Yeah, indeed you could. And if you do the math and figure out how long does it take if you have 110,000 images and you can do one every 4 seconds, turns out it's going to be hundreds of hours. So if anyone is looking for an underpaid job, well, probably a properly paid job, doing nothing but editing hour after hour comic images, please reach out to me, pbickford Yeah, let me see if I can pull up the graphic here. There's my Chiron right there. Reach out, and I can throw some work your way. If not, it's getting divvied up amongst the staff, and we'll hit it eventually, but not necessarily in time for the next ship, because I've been up till, like I say, past midnight for the last 3 or 4 nights on this whole thing until my eyes are glazed over, and yeah, that's a thing. So, alright, let me quickly check the chat. Greg says, strangest thing I ever saw in the database, the picture of maple syrup in place of an EC Comics cover. Thank God that's been corrected. That would be too strange for words. Good comment, but those variant covers are subtle. Yes, it is. Richard says, I'm doing my best on the scans, cannot seem to get the trim off no matter what I do. Look, guys, don't get me wrong, I appreciate everything you guys are doing. More than you know. It's just, but to the extent you possibly can, yeah, trimming really helps. And we're going to try to make it, once we eventually do get on top of the whole thing, we'll try to make it so that as part of the image submission process, all the new ones get run through the same, crop verification process just to keep the quality level up. But it's an ongoing issue, and everything just looks so much better if it's got all the margins tucked in appropriately. As I would tell production assistants when they came on at Human Computing, people don't miss the pixels they never saw, but they'll definitely see the ugly pixels if you leave them in. So, when in doubt, be a little more aggressive on the crop than you might otherwise be. By the way, when you are doing scanning just in general, in case you guys haven't heard the spiel before, when you scan anything, whether it's a comic book, magazine, etc., give us, ideally stick it on a scanner, scan at 300 dpi, give us a full-size 300 dpi scan, crop it back to the visible area, go ahead and save it at the maximum quality level for JPEG, submit that in, and then we'll take care of any kind of downsampling or downsizing that needs to happen once we've got it in our library to serve it up to the different image sizes. But starting from the highest possible quality original is always the best way to go, even if that means that the stuff takes a bajillion gigs on our servers. It won't take a bajillion gigs on your server, because we'll, like I said, we'll downsize it as we need to deliver it up. But if you give us the highest possible scan to start with, up to 300 dpi, there's really no sense going higher than 300 dpi with the comic printing process, because at that point you're just inventing pixels that aren't there. But up to 300 dpi, we'll definitely do that. And when you've got images that look like that and they're properly scanned, they look absolutely gorgeous. So anyway, that would be the scanning tip. And then finally, on cover scans, please avoid sending us covers that have been watermarked in any visible way. So every once in a while, and like guys, I know this comes out of love, so I'm not faulting anyone on this whole thing. But every once in a while, someone will send in something from like My Comic Shop or Mile High or wherever, right? And we can never take those. If they do somehow sneak past us in our editing process, the very first thing we do is throw them out. So we don't want to stomp on anyone else's work. I mean, it's enough work doing it ourselves. But as much as we would love to have that image of that weird, rare comic book that that only My Comic Shop has, we can't use it. We just can't. So anyway, and by the way, if you guys do see any that have slipped past us in our previous editing process, because every once in a while, as I'm going through thousands and thousands of scans like this, every once in a while I'll see one that somehow got past us. I have to nuke it. So just so you know. But anyway, thank you for trying. But please don't send those our way. All right. So let's see here. What about using an iPhone to take an image? You can do that, but it gets to be, you get a problem. It's called Spherical Distortion. The problem is comic books and books are perfectly rectangular. But when you take a picture of them with anything round, like a lens of anything, even if it's a large format camera, you're always going to be distorting this perfectly rectangular thing, and you'll see that you're causing it to bulge just because the lens itself is curved like the human eye is. So in extremis you can do it, and we can try to essentially crop out the distortion. It's never really good. If it's if it's a super rare comic that no one has ever seen before in the wild, and the only possible way you have of sending it to us is with an iPhone. Sure, I'll take an iPhone rather than nothing, but a scanner is absolutely the right way to do it, because what a scanner does is it literally goes right down the top, and the lens is the line, and so it gets a perfectly linear picture of whatever it is you're scanning in a way that no photo ever could. Yeah, I can't help it. We scan rectangular things all day, and when you see them presented on screen, you really want them to be rectangular. So, we got to handle that. Okay. All right. So, other news. Sets on Atomic Avenue. So we found, thanks to, I'm going to say his name was Greg, and now I'm blanking on his last name. We found a little bit of a issue with posting sets on Atomic Avenue. If any of you have been tripped up on that recently, I don't know if it was specific to him, but we did trace back the problem enough so that we could see how it could happen to you. If that happened to you, your sets should now be appearing on Atomic Avenue. They appear up in the sets section of the site. And by the way, as part of investigating this issue, I did talk to the folks over at Atomic Avenue to know enough that they are planning, as part of their next rev of the site, to make sets more visible in the overall inventory listings. Right now they're in their kind of like the set ghetto. So when they go and they add in fully their magazine and book support, I've also been told they intend to put the sets in. So hopefully that all hits. I've heard soon is the whole thing. That apparently what they're doing is a lot of behind the scenes work. We're involved with some of it in terms of the posting of things to their site, but in terms of the user interface to show the things we're giving them, apparently that's been a bit of a process for them, but they are planning on doing that. Sounds like the time frame is going to be a bit after we ship our next version, which is coming up incredibly shortly. But anyway, that's coming up. Okay, images. Questions from folks. Okay, by the way, if you guys have other questions, let us know. Oh, Xano Comics says, can cover scans from Diamond Distributors be used? Absolutely they can. The warning on that one is typically when we know that they're coming from Diamond, typically we'll get them all ahead of you, because they'll come as part of our process for ingesting their catalog that we do as part of our work. What we will do is, because they don't have the final image typically, they have the image as solicited, which what comes out is often very similar to that image, and sometimes it bears no resemblance whatsoever. What we do with anything that comes from Diamond is we stamp it with preliminary artwork, and we put that as a watermark along the left-hand side, so that you know if you get the real thing in your hands later on and it doesn't look at all like the thing, you'll know that the thing that you were overriding was a preliminary image. I don't mind if you send us preliminary images if we don't have one already. If again, I'll take something's better than nothing. But it does help if we know that it's a preliminary art. So, okay. Let's see here. Greg says, I've resorted to iPhone photos only in cases where the book was larger than my scanning bed, which is a big scanner bed. Yeah, I feel you on that one. What we used to do back in our old office, we used to have a massive, it was like an 11 by 17, it was a tabloid art scanner. Unfortunately, it used a really exotic SCSI interface, SCSI interface, which I think nothing in the last 10 years has had. And so we always had to have this special retro SCSI card on an old system whose driver was 32-bit only, etc. You had to essentially maintain an antique computer to go with the scanner, and eventually we lost the ability to keep that all in sync, and so we had to give up the scanner. Every once in a while, we'll get one of these artist edition books or something that's tabloid, and frankly, what we have to do is we have to scan it in pieces and stitch it together, which sucks. It's a pain in the butt. The way you do it and make it look good is you scan the top part, you scan the bottom part, you make sure they overlap by a bit, you position the halves over each other, and then you delete the overlap. And if you feather the selection, usually it's pretty much indetectable. But it's still a pain in the tuchus. So yeah, I feel you. I do appreciate, again, the effort. For anyone who's saying stuff where we don't have it, but yeah, definitely, iPhone is not the preferred way to go on this stuff. Yeah, and try the iPhone method for gold foil. So yeah, anything with a high color sheen or remember in the 90s where foil covers were all the rage? Like you'd have a silver foil cover, a chrome foil, a chromium cover, a gold foil cover, and when you scan any of them, they always come out black. Because what they're relying on is they're relying on a light reflection from off axis to hit them to give you that sparkle effect, where if the scanner light hits them dead on, they never quite look right. We experimented back in the 90s where it looked like we were going to be dealing with gold foil stuff forever. The stuff that has gold foil and an emboss isn't so bad because at least the edges of it will pick up that sheen because geometrically it's irregular. But if it doesn't have the emboss gold, all the foils scan as if they were black. We experimented with like doing tricks to put the comic book up on edge a little bit. Honestly, nothing ever worked. If you guys find something that does work, let us know. We'd love to learn from you. The iPhone thing, honestly, might be the best way. All right. Magazine and book support AA search very overdue. Glad to hear it's being worked on. Hell yeah, I'm there all the way. By the way, one thing we did do also recently that should help is we added in the ability to we fixed certain of the links when you are going in ComicBase and you're going directly to look up a book on Atomic Avenue. That support is better than it was in the past. One thing that's going to happen also probably right around the time we ship Crystal Palace, so I'm talking very near future, is we're going to switch over the interface so that it's expecting a if you guys are familiar with internet standards, a UTF-8 search string as opposed to a Windows 1252. Basically, it's the character sets involved. ComicBase and old ComicBase, ComicBase 2017 and earlier, and Atomic Avenue as a result, have always been built around the characters that form the Western alphabets. So basically, you know, English, German, Spanish, etc. Those are all in a character set. You can use 256 characters to represent pretty much all the umlauts and cedillas and all the things that they use a lot in the West. The problem comes is when you start branching into things like the Baltic languages, Cyrillic, and then God help you if you get into things like Hebrew or Arabic or any of the Japanese languages or kanji, anything like that. You can't represent the characters. There's just not enough. There's too many characters, and they don't stack up the way that the English characters do, where it's like the kanji symbol for Tokyo, for instance, would be one very elaborate glyph. It's not like a T with a style on it. It's something much more involved. So you need a very big amount of bytes to describe that. Well, particularly you need I think it's four. It's a minimum of 2 bytes stuck together to hit each of those characters. So anyway, modern internet is based around a standard called UTF-8, which is Unicode, which tries to be 8-bit when it can, so it's kind of, thin and, and it doesn't use a lot of space when dealing with things like English, but it will expand out to 2 bytes per character whenever it needs to for things like Arabic or Japanese. Anyway, when the internet came along, that was all set there. Unfortunately, our work had been done far before that, so we were kind of locked into this Windows 1252 world, which was very good for all the things that were comic books that we cared about, but not necessarily for comic books and other books that we will care about in the future. When we did ComicBase 2020, we made a decision to base it all around the more modern standard of UTF-8. So we can support all those new things, but we had to maintain backward compatibility with the existing Atomic Avenue. With ComicBase 2017 essentially becoming defunct as of right about now, we're safe to more or less pull the trigger on switching over the interface to the UTF-8 interface. So when we do that, then we should be able to more easily access characters like Bastai and Ariatit, and so, things like with funny little accents everywhere that don't do so well. That should work better in the future. So, that's coming. All right. Yeah, right. Greg says right now CES is where AA inventory goes to die. Yes. It was something. It should be much more prominent than it is. Greg says I have an Epson scanner with a 11 by 17 bed. Once I want to get something that's even bigger than that. Greg, I'd be interested. Can you tell us what model you're using, and is it USB? Because honestly, we're probably in the market if for a scanner that doesn't cost like 4.5 grand, that is really fast and is really big. Those are the characteristics we really like in our scanners, but it's got to be USB. There's no way we're going back and doing a SCSI thing again. 11x17 scanners tend to be a real specialty item these days. And so if there is somebody out there who's done something good with that that's competitive from a price standpoint, drop me a note with your model. I'd be interested in looking into that. All right. Xander says, please, Atomic Avenue, come on to talk. Lots of questions when we have the future. I have broached it with them. The answer I always get is, we might do this after our system update. Because what I'm getting is that they know that there's a lot of work that they're working on, and they don't want to talk to anyone until they get done with it. Anyway, so that's that. Microsoft's image composite editor might help with stitching images automatically. I don't know about this tool. I will look into that. Does it do auto stitching of like graphics like that? If it can do that without showing, what usually is the problem is that you get a shadow along the edge of the graphic, and if it papers over that a little bit more automatically, that'd be a good thing to know about. Photoshop is our go-to tool for all these things, so if there's something that's better, I am all over that. So yeah, anything we can do to make our tools better is always a win for us. So yeah, I will look into that. Thanks for the tip on that one. Okay, other questions people have had. All right, let's finally answer the one we got right at the top of the show. Are magazines like Born and Wizard magazines such as 1984 and 1999 like showing up on Atomic Avenue listings? The answer at the moment is yes, but you have to know their exact title to go to them. Because what is happening right now is they've surfaced in the was it the autocomplete search. So when you just start typing like creepy, something like that, you will actually appear as one of the autocomplete choices on Atomic Avenue, at which point you can get to it. But one thing they haven't built out is the sections for books and magazines, so there's no browsing to them. Which I'm wondering at this point how useful the browsing is in general, because we're getting so many things. I mean, does anyone ever just sit there and say, I'd like to look at horror titles and just scroll through thousands and thousands of listings for horror? I don't know if that's even a thing anymore. I suspect the future is going to belong to people who are going to more effortlessly mix and match little subset collections of things, you know, kind of like curated listings, like, you know, here's horror titles for you. And so that I show you 50 things you might like and give you a list of others, you know, that you could search for. But I feel like at this point, like almost all the actual data that's out there in the world, there's just so many titles. No one can break it down in logical ways. I suspect that's also one of the reasons that Atomic Avenue is taking their sweet time with trying to figure out ways of slicing that problem, because there's just so dang many things to try to work through. Is how do you like, if you take on books, right? I mean, nobody goes to not Atomic Avenue, but nobody goes to Amazon.com and says, I'd like to browse books. Right? I think you might say things like, show me Ray Bradbury books. You might say things like, you know, show me top horror books. I mean, there may be other things like that, but it's the billion-dollar question of what's the most efficient way to sort through things by fuzzy criteria like that and make them visible. And I'll put it this way, companies with literally 1,000 times the funding of ourselves or Atomic Avenue have been struggling with that problem. It's a hard problem in the space. So I have the feeling it'll be an iterative effort, but there's really no browsability at all right now. So right now it's entirely based on knowing the name of what you're looking for, which, you know, it's something, but it's not the best I could ever imagine it being. So I look forward to seeing what they come up with. All right, let's see here. Epson Workforce WF7620 does Wi-Fi and Ethernet. Interesting. I will look into that. Do larger than as a decade-old scanner, the Asus 1200. Anything else would cost a fortune. Yeah, the art scanners are crazy expensive. And the GT 20,000, yes. We had a GT, I want to say 15,000, and that was SCSI, and I think there might have been a USB 1.0 add-on option to one of it. It was, or maybe USB 2.0, but it was god-awful slow, and the thing was a monster, and it cost a frickin' fortune, and the driver support was awful. It was something where I thought, I'm not in a hurry to go back to Epson for the large format scanners, but yeah, definitely worth looking at. One thing I'd be curious about, Steve, is how is the USB on your GT 20,000? Do you find it is fast at all? So if you just scanned a regular comic book at 300 dpi, how long does it take you? And have you had any trouble with 64-bit Photoshop drivers for it? Because both of those were big issues for us. Let's see here. In Action 848 with Isbn with the creator, I will have a look for it. And several Action Comics issues. Yeah, I will have a look at those. And for whoever's sending that in, please stop doing it. All right, that's that. Okay, next question. Running ComicBase on a network or parallels with VMware, which winds up being the same problem. So let me show what that is going on with that. Let's go ahead and pull up the screen over here. Scrolling down. Okay, so we're looking at that screen over here. Let's pull up ComicBase, and hopefully I can show something useful here in just a second. Okay, all right. So if you guys are using ComicBase, you may have noticed if you're using it on Parallels or VMware, you may have had trouble, at least initially, with the database not wanting to open. It would basically give you a message, very instructive, say something like database can't open, fail. And this was a message coming from SQLite, so it turned out it was really hard for us to trap and figure out what's going on because we were getting a low-level driver failure on it. After a lot of investigation, we figured out what was going on was this. And this is specific to people using it on VMware, Parallels, one of these VirtualBox, one of these virtualization solutions, or if you're trying to share it over a network, because they wind up doing the same thing. So if you look at your database, and let me go ahead and open one up here, where your database lives on your machine. I'm looking. ComicBase databases. Where are you at, my friend? Okay. All right. Let me drag this window over here. All right. So the default place that your database lives is in a place called c:\users/your name/documents. All right. Which, by the way, this whole first part here, you typically never see that part unless you're looking for it, because really the way you typically see it displayed in Windows is just My Documents. That's what that amounts to, is that whole first part. And then inside there's a folder called Human Computing, and inside there's a folder called ComicBase Databases. That's where your ComicBase database wants to live. And if you click on it, that's where you'll see that it does live. Now, what you will see, and here's the part where these virtual environments, these networks lie to you. I'm going to go, and it's worth noting what I'm doing here. I'm taking this area in between, see on the very left here, and the search box. I'm going ahead and I'm making the left area bigger so I can see the full path. If I click in here, and this works for any folder in your entire Windows library, your entire Windows machine, it'll display the full path to whatever folder you're in. What's happening for these folks who are having the issue running it on a network or running on their PC is, instead of, when they click on where their database is, they'll notice instead of being called c:\users/whatever, instead it'll have a path like //mac/home/whatever else. But it won't start with a letter. It'll start with these two double backslashes. And what that's called is, that's I think it's called a Vnc path, but it's basically a network path whenever you don't start with a letter in Windows. And what is happening is their virtualization environment, their Parallels, their VMware, whatever else, is setting up a fake network between the PC side of their computer and the Mac side of their computer, which, strange enough, is the same computer. But you're essentially running a computer inside a computer, and to let you share files between the Mac and the PC side from within the PC side, it's setting up a fake network back home. Well, one of the problems is, well, two problems. One is it's a fake network. It doesn't work the way real networks work. That's problem number one. The other problem is that SQLite, which is the database engine that ComicBase 2020 is built on, can't resolve network paths in this format. And so when it sees that you are trying to open up a database on this faked out network path, it says, whoa, I can't do anything with that, fail. All right. So what do you do about this? It turns out if you're in this position, there's three things you can do, all of which work. So pick the one that makes sense for you, and you're good to go. Option number one is go into whatever networking, whatever virtualization software you're using, Parallels, VMware, whatever else, and somewhere in there is going to be an option to stop sharing between the Mac and the PC sides. What that means is when you're in the PC side, you won't be able to see your Mac disk anymore. So if you don't need to drag things between your Mac and your PC side, who cares? Just turn that off, and then it will start having paths that when you click on them, you'll see that they will say the regular thing. It'll be something that starts with C:/, etc., and then everything suddenly works. That's option number one. But let's say you do want to keep the sharing between your Mac and your PC. That's fine. What you would do in that case is move your ComicBase database to a folder which isn't shared. And a good one in most cases is just go out to the top level of your C drive and make a new folder. See, let's call this one over here. I'm just going to call it, like, my databases, which of course I can't see. Let me go ahead and scroll this down so I can see what I'm even typing. Okay. Call it my databases. Drag your ComicBase database into there. Click on it to make sure that it really does say C:// my databases and not like //mac/home/ whatever. If you drag your database into there, it will also work. And so just run your database out of there instead of its default location. That's option number two. Option number three is go ahead and make a network share for to give a name to your virtualized network location. So if you say, for instance, I want to, and I used to know how to do this. Is it map? It's called mapping a drive letter, and I used to know where this is. What do you want to bet? Map network. Where did you go? Oh, I used to know. All right, I'm gonna blow off the step-by-step on this one. I might do a help on it later on if I figure out where they moved it in Windows 10. But anyway, you can do a thing called mapping the network drive. So in other words, if you have a favorite file location, like I don't know, I've got a network server called Gizmo, right? And so if I want to go to Gizmo/mypictures or something like that, I can go ahead and set Gizmo my pictures to be my Z drive. And so instead of saying, my graphics, instead of seeing that, it will see Z:/ that, and ComicBase will work fine with that. So those are three ways of solving the problem. It gets a little complicated. If you are stuck with that, regardless of watching this one, reach out to me, and I'll do what I can to make that clearer in a better version of things, and we'll take it from there. Oh man, bummer. And I see that despite me talking this entire time, the screen had not actually switched over. Oh, it's called and compliment says it's a UNC Path, Universal Naming Convention. Thank you very much for that. And yes, Gregory says we're not seeing your screen for the demo. Thank you. Yeah, again, a little bit of a problem with the switcher here. When I switched it over using the macros in order to keep the keying, it did not actually activate program mode on the switcher, so dang it, sorry about that. I hope you have followed along. It got a little complicated. Just to very briefly at least give a visual to someone saying is, at the top of any folder you've got, there's a little splitter between here and here where you can switch between how big the search is and how big the path is. Make that really big, click on where you're at, and you'll see what the real path for whatever folder you're in. If you were to go to where ComicBase normally lies, let me show you where mine is. It looks like this. That's the full path of what that looks like. Just make sure, as long as yours actually has C: something or D or like a letter as your first letter, it's going to work fine. If it starts out with // and then usually it's like mac./home/whatever. But basically, if it's / anything, then it's on a network, and you'll need to do some kind of drive mapping or move it in order to make it work. All right. That was badly explained, but thank you for sticking with me. I'll try to do better in the future. Let's see if this works to switch you back. Oh, interesting. It did not. All right. I've got some work to do on my macros here, because it switched over between the two camera views. I saw it on my monitor here, but it didn't actually queue up program next as part of the macros. That's why you didn't see anything I was doing. Okay, Richard says, 2 separate scans of the same thing, parts gets put together seamlessly, works with Photoshop, and a great application. Nice to know. I will look into that. Open a Windows Explorer window. There should be an option at the top. Computer tab. Windows Explorer window should be an option at the top. Well, so let's see here. Got Windows Explorer open. Steve, where are you thinking? And we're thinking of here is, where is the map the network drive? See, I'm going to say it used to be right up at the top here. There used to be a command that says literally like map network drive. I have not done this in a dog's age, and I'll admit I have forgotten where this is. Anyway, Steve, if you see it in the chat real quickly, let me know. But at the moment, I do not know where they've got map network drive. Sorry about that. Let me see if does it appear any differently if I go to special folders like C. Not that I can tell. Anyway, I'll figure something out. I'll put it in the show notes. We'll take it from there. All right, moving on. Okay. Another person has asked about compared to the master database, is it, and so forth, as a feature. This is great. All right, so Orchestras for reference is, we used to have a feature in ComicBase 2017. It was a little obscure, but it was in the file tools called, I think it was a sub option of the rebuilding lists, but there was an option to compare your title names against our master database and tell you any title names you had in your database that we had not heard of. It was pretty good for checking to see whether you had a new title that maybe ought to be something you submit as a correction, and also it was pretty good for letting you know that, hey, maybe we've added something in that you don't, that is under a different name than what you've got, so maybe you ought to call it something else. I am interested in bringing this back. It turns out it's a little hard to do from a given the number of titles in ComicBase these days. I can't just do a straight send out to our server and say, here's a list of all his titles, give me the ones that don't match, because it's too much data. It fails as a web request. So we can do things like, writing a file onto our server and telling something on our server, hey, go look at that file we just sent you, and then we could email you back. But it gets a little bit asynchronous. There isn't a great way to just kind of give you an answer in real time. So we can give you an answer pretty quickly, but it isn't the same as saying, give me the list right now, and I want it as response to my keystroke. So I want to ask you guys, how would you like to get such a list? If we emailed it to you, is that a good thing? If we stuck it as a report in your folder and we said, yeah, there's a list of titles that don't match, click here to see the report. What's the best for you guys who are interested in that report to get the data? Another way we could do it is, as part of Sidekick, is just when we chew on your database to make any other reports, we could just automatically make a mismatched titles report. What would work the best for you guys that wouldn't mess you up and wouldn't freak out the neighbors and so forth? Let me know. I'm keen to know, because yeah, it's I don't have a clean answer for it. It's not technically that bad of a problem. It's just I can't do it, like I say, in one go. I can't make it so that you hit a button on the screen and the thing that comes back from you hitting the button is the result with your matched titles. I have to send that to you via a different path than you gave me. So I'd like to know how you'd like to see that, and I'll do their best to accommodate you. All right. All right, I'm gonna check here. All right, another recommendation on a scanner: Mustech Laser Scanner Express, very under 200. Dang, if that thing is still working, I want to know. ComicBase says, I missed your question. All right, scrolling back, John. Let me see if I can find it. John said, hello. Almost missed the broadcast. Scared. Congrats, Mark. Variant color is subtle. Oh, how can I print a list of all the comics in a particular box that would give me the total of everything in that box? Great question. Easy. All you gotta do, and let's go to the screen and make sure it actually switches, is do a find. Do a find in a database that is the same version as the one that you're using. Ha ha ha. Alright, I'm going to cheat, and the problem is I'm using a database that's actually a ComicBase 2021 database, and I was retro doing it, so let me open it up using the real stuff. You didn't see anything you're seeing. Oh, I'm not going to show you the cool stuff. But you are looking slightly into the future, my friends. Don't get too ahead of yourselves. Alright. Let's get this onto the screen. We'll take it from there. Okay. So what you do is do a find. Alright, Control F works for that. What I would do is go to my item fields, and if I'd set up, say, my custom field 1 as my box location, it would say box location, and I would say something like, show me everything that's in box, 7, right? And that's going to give me a list. Alright, when that list comes back, so that'll be everything that's in box 7, highlight in the results everything that's in that list, and then right-click and say Quick Report. And when you get that Quick Report, which is, of course, on the other screen, let me bring it over, it will show you all your totals. So that's easily done. Just do that. And so I guess to back up the question at the very start, set up, make a custom field that is, use custom field number 1, make that say your box number, or your location number, your file drawer, whatever it is that you want to call it. When you get out of there and you do a find, then you'll see that you now have the ability to find. If you go to item fields, suddenly you'll have the ability to get to box. It will be one of your options right there. So say box is, and then put in your box number. It will give you a list of results. Highlight the results. Right click, choose Quick Report, and you're good to go. Alright? Alright. Okay, other questions? Open up my computer where you see all the drives. Alright, Steve says, show up my computer where you see all the drives. Let's see if we can get there. So, I'm going to my computer. Alright, so here's this PC. Oh, that's where they hit it. Okay, so yeah, it was on the top level. So if you do want to map a network drive, so this is how to make it so your network location has a name. You click and say map network drive, and it's going to say what location you want to give it. You call it whatever drive you want. It'll start the end of the alphabet and move forward. Z is fine, and then you'd say something like //Mac/home/ whatever the rest of the thing is, or you could browse for it on the whole thing. And then what will happen then is once you've done that, then your computer will think of that as your Z drive, and then you can access that stuff regularly, and it's easy to share a ComicBase database over a network that way. Thank you so much, Steve. I really appreciate it. Okay. All right. So, and okay. So I think about 3 other people chimed in with the same answer. All right. Still working. Does appear to be out of production. Picked up used. Okay, got that. Okay. So anyway, I think we're at the hour. So thanks everyone. I'm gonna wrap this one up. Thanks so much for attending this one. Next time out, we should have lots of cool new stuff to show you, including finally. I'm hoping very much. They've been delayed by a few weeks. We've had some weird weather out here in Tennessee. So apparently the new bookshelves I made made for my office have been having a long time getting constructed and stained, but I'm expecting those in actually tomorrow. At which point I'll give you a little bit more of a tour of the office and show off the Eagle Moss stuff. Oh, by the way, speaking of Eagle Moss stuff, so yes, thank you me for rambling on and reminding myself. So well done, brain. Anyway. You guys may remember that there used to be a huge box behind me for about a month with, it's full of Eagle Moss graphic novels, which are those lovely DC ones where if you put them all in a row, they actually make, Alex Ross artwork on the spines and everything. Plus, they're gorgeous freaking books anyway. Anyway, I had ordered a ton of these from Eagle Moss over to England, shipped through a freight forwarder and so forth. They came to me, but somehow Eagle Moss screwed up and sent them to me twice. So I not only ordered a ton of them, but I got 2 tons of these sent to me. So I wrote them back and said, hey guys, mistaken overship, what do you want done with them? And they said, yeah, we'll send them back to me. I said, okay, I'll send them back to you, but it's going to be 140 bucks. And they said, yeah, okay, let me get back to you, because I got to get approval from my management to get the whole thing going. This now has gone on for over a month in terms of getting a response from management, to whether we can do something with them or not. And I eventually wrote to them and said, guys, we've had literally 8 back and forths on this one. It's been over a month. If you don't give me an answer by 4 o'clock Central tomorrow, I'm going to consider them surrendered, and they're going to become giveaways on the podcast. So I checked email right before 4 o'clock Central, but I didn't do it right at 4 o'clock Central. But I'm going to assume, because England's a little bit ahead of us on the time here, they have said hell with it. So I've got a bunch of Eagle Moss graphic novels that are going to become prizes of some sort in the following weeks. So we'll do something to give those away to you guys. So give me ideas. We've done everything from trivia contests to whatever in the past. Yeah, let's have some fun with this one, because I got some cool prizes to give to you guys, and we'll figure out a way to give those out. And honestly, just because, look, this was an honest mistake on Eagle Moss's part, and it's a tough situation for them where, it cost them almost as much to get them back as it cost for them to be worth it. So I do want to at least repay, them with some kind of kindness on the whole thing. I don't want to pay twice to ship their stuff back to them for free, but at the same time, I do want to say, look, Eagle Moss does make some great freaking stuff. Go ahead and check out shop.eaglemoss.com, especially if you like miniatures or action figures or things like that. Some of the best ones I've ever seen are from over there, and they are not super expensive, all things considered. I mean, they cost money, but they're not like sideshow money. But anyway, hopefully we can give them a little bit of advertising, cred as we're giving away the stuff that they accidentally sent me. So that's the story on the Eagle Moss graphic novels, and send me your ideas for how best to dispose of them, and we'll take it from there. I'm open to anything. All right, let me do a quick check the chat, and then I think we're going to say goodnight. All right. Okay. Need barcodes for your box. Just scan those and find my stuff in the box. That's kind of neat. And Greg reminds everyone there's a dedicated thread on the CB message boards. You can request topics. Sweet, guys. Thanks so much, everyone, for coming, and we'll see you all next time. Take care.